All right. So this was another amazing panel discussion that we heard, and I'm sure that we all have great takeaways from it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is one thing I would quickly like to once again remind you that we have this session till 5 o'clock, and till 5 o'clock we have an amazing opportunity that every person who's finding a mentor, all you have to do is to go on this app called MentorKart app, download it. And the best part is that for the certain thing that you had to pay 3,000 rupees, which I believe is again a very small amount, you don't have to do that also. All you have to pay is a small token money of 11 rupees and you get a 3 months free full subscription. And I believe how amazing it can be that you can meet all the mentors for such a small amount, but most importantly, transform your life. With this, now is the time to move to the next session. And before we start with the next session, I first of all want to see through emoticons and through your reactions. Are you excited for the next session? Are you pumped up? I want some claps. I want some heart coming out, some bulbs coming out, some insights coming out, so that we all know that we are on the same page. Great. I can see great emoticons coming out. Great. The audiences are really the excited ones. Great. Now I will quickly narrate a small story once again. Hi, Ruchi ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll quickly introduce you, ma'am, and then we are very, very highly excited to listen to your point of views, ma'am. So, welcome, ma'am. So, one thing, ma'am, I just want to talk to everyone, and I'll talk to you also because I believe today your topic very, very clearly goes with the story I'm going to narrate to everyone. So, once, ladies and gentlemen, there was a frog. And that frog, by God's grace, was always born. Frog birth was always in a well. Now, birds used to come and tell him that, you know what, outside the world is very beautiful. Why don't you come up? And the frog used to say, hey, listen, I'm happy here. The world and the life is good here. Now, every time any animal used to come and ask the frog to come out, the frog used to disrespect that animal and used to say, get lost. I'm happy in my well. Then one day a sparrow came, a beautiful sparrow came and said the same thing. Frog, what are you doing with your life? Why are you in this small vicinity? Come out, look at the plants, look at the sky. Why don't you come out? The frog again said, I'm not going to come out. The sparrow, now what the sparrow did? With the beak, took the frog outside the well and then left it outside. The frog was shocked. He never thought that the world can be so big, that instead of going in the small vicinity, he could jump here and there anywhere he wanted to. He was shocked to see the beautiful flowers. He was shocked to see the big trees. He was shocked to see so many animals. He was shocked to see the big sky. And I believe, ladies and gentlemen, just like the frog was shocked to see, somewhere down the lane, a part of our heart and a part of our spirit also believes or remains in that well. The well that we create in our mind, the well that somebody else says that, you know what, your limits are just still here. And then we don't even try to exceed those boundaries. But today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a beautiful speaker with us who's going to explain us that we are not supposed to remain in that small boundary. There are boundaries that are greater than the ideologies that we have. I would quickly like to introduce our next speaker. We are already seeing her with a charming smile and a very beautiful expression. But I would quickly like to say, because what I'm going to tell next about her is going to shock you all, just the way I was. I very strongly believe on one thing, ladies and gentlemen. What makes a person is not the place where the person is born, but the experiences the person goes through. And I must say that when I look onto the experiences of our next speaker, I'm really shocked of she's gone through every single corporate place and has a multiple level experience. I would quickly like to say 3 or 4 experiences that she has. She has worked with telecom industry with Vodafone. She has worked with healthcare industry in the name of Bosch and Lomb. She has worked with IT sector with Microsoft, and she's worked with higher education at University of LinkedIn. She is a person with unwavering spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, on your screen next is our speaker, Ms. Ruchi Agarwal, with a huge round of applause. I want everyone to show the same enthusiasm that you are carrying in your heart. Welcome, ma'am, to the stage and the conference.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I've seldom received such an enthusiastic introduction. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, and Ashish, thank you so much from MentorKart for having me on this event. I think it's absolutely fantastic to be amongst my Indian brethren. It's always a pleasure to be amongst an Indian event. You won't believe it, but the enthusiasm, the insights, the passion that an Indian audience and Indian speakers exude is just something else. And I live in Lincoln, which is a beautiful historic city about 2 hours north of London. And I've lived here now for 4 years. Before that, I was 6 years in India, but before that stint, I was for 8 years in Scotland. So I've been in and out of the UK, where India always, grabs our heart, and that's the place that I'm going to retire in as well. Once we finish working for when we feel we're ready to come back, which is just a few years from now. So it's really a pleasure to be here, and wonderful to see this platform AirMeet. So Lalit, I'm going to be contacting you. I think it's a super platform. It's working wonderful, and looks like the key features of it are something that we could definitely use. So I will get in touch. Okay, so today I've been asked to talk about plugging the employability gap and creating a global mindset. And I know this audience that we have here today is a mix of students, corporates. I can see some, coaches, consultants on here. So we've got the industry as well, which is actually the right sort of mix for all of us to come together, because no longer are the boundaries between each of these distinct. They're permeable, and they should be permeable. And I think hence a platform like this, bringing together everyone who has aspiration and who wants to get a mindset which is global, which is what I'm going to talk about, is an absolutely right place to be. So I'm hoping in the next 15 minutes or so, I'll try not to go over time. It's 9:40 a.m. here in the UK, so I'll try and take about 15 minutes and wrap it up from there. So essentially, my background, as KPH has very kindly already mentioned, is I belong to the corporate sector. I was born in the corporate sector, like many of us on here. I did my MBA after my economics at LSR in the Lady Shri Ram College in Delhi. Then I worked for 10 years, got married to my husband, who's a surgeon, came to the UK, lived here for 10 years, went back to India because it calls very strongly. And we wanted our children to know what India is all about and feel the pride of being an Indian, and then living and working where you want globally, it doesn't matter. Then we came back to the UK 4 years ago. When I came to the UK, because the city of Lincoln is north of London, and Microsoft, where I was working in India, had its office close to London, I didn't want to travel so far. So I joined the university. And the University of Lincoln and the higher education concept of having a university's role in society was something that absolutely astonished me. I didn't know that the role of a university was so deep in the ecosystem of what we do as people, as professionals, as corporates, as students. It's absolutely amazing. So I'm actually having the time of my life. I can do what I want. I can leverage my corporate experience, and I can actually extend into forums like this. So I play multiple roles at the university. Essentially, I am the director for business development for the Lincoln International Business School, which is part of the University of Lincoln. You can Google the University of Lincoln. It's a young university, about 25, 26 years old. Now compare that to hundreds of years of established universities in the UK and internationally, even in India, of course, which is the seat of learning historically. And you'll find that the University of Lincoln is a young university. However, it's in the top 20 in the UK. So very fast growing, very entrepreneurial university, and hence encourages a lot of collaboration and outreach. And we'll come to those points in a bit. I also am an associate professor here, so I don't teach, but I'm engaged with dissertations of students and consultancy projects with students. But my essential role is the interface between industry and academia. And the depth of that relationship overseas, especially in the UK, is very, very strong. And I'm hoping we can create some connect through this platform as well, because it'll be my pleasure. Because the other hat I wear is that I'm the regional lead for India for the university. No surprise there, given my passion for India. So that's what I essentially do. However, going between India and the UK has created a very distinct benefit for the way I see my profession. I see myself as a person, which is creating a global mindset, a framework in which one works globally, which is very, very key for each one of us. No longer are we bound by geography. No longer are we bound by things that people talk or say in a certain way, because when you interact at work, when you interact even as students, you're interacting with the world. So how do we enhance our mindset to create a global, thinking and a global sensibility, I guess, is where I'm going to pitch, this talk. And that will really bring about both my academic current skill set that I'm learning every day, but also about the 22, 23 years that I had in industry before I got into higher education sector. So I'm hoping that I can bring some of these experience to life from some of the research that we're doing here. Additionally, the women on the group might be interested to know that I also speak quite extensively on women and leadership, because I think the inclusion agenda today is a very, very important one. And having more women leaders, having more women as part of the conversation is a very, very key factor of an organization's growth. So I'm a very passionate speaker on women and leadership. So I'm hoping I can get some of those experiences to life for you as well. So cross-cultural exposure set, very, very important and key for all of us, transferable skills and an inclusion mindset. And we'll start with that. Whenever I worked in India, and India is a populous country, right? It's got a massive population. However, the one key thing organizations always said is, "Achhe log nahi milte." Log milte hain, par achhe log nahi milte. We don't get enough talent, but there are enough graduates. There are enough postgraduates. So what does this mean? That log kafi hai, par achhe log nahi milte? And that's something that set me thinking, saying obviously there is a skill set that is being asked for, which is an employability skill set. How ready are you to be employable and be productive to an organization is what organizations were calling achhe log nahi milte. And I think it's time for us now, especially in the moment of history that we find ourselves in, that this is the opportunity to get our skill set aligned to be employable, productive, and hence very, very useful to the economy and, of course, to ourselves. So I've got a couple of, few data points, few trends that I could, share with you in the next 10 minutes or so that I've handpicked for this particular keynote. Firstly, if you have not heard of the term VUCA, VUCA, I would suggest you Google it, because it's a term that I used to use in a lot of my talks, saying, it's a VUCA world. It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Now think about those words. It's something that you go through, we go through every day of our lives. And I used to talk about it. I used to put it into my talks. Of course, everyone lives a VUCA life because things are complex and ambiguous in the world. Especially some of the speakers before me spoke about startups and the evolving ecosystem and the percentage of change that they have to deal with on a day-to-day life. That's all VUCA. But when this pandemic hit us in March, and I know we've been shut here since the 24th of March, when that hit us, the true meaning of VUCA really came home. And I'm telling you that I'll never use the word VUCA lightly ever again, because if there was ever a volatile, uncertain time, it is now. And the question is, what do we do with it? What do we do about it? What do we do about it as students, as mentors, as leaders, as emerging leaders, and as people who want to make a difference? So bear in mind that word, which I think is a very, very key pivot at this point in time. The main thing we can do, in fact, I'll also tell you where this word came from. Once you Google it, you'll find that it's from the US Army War College. It came during the Cold War, so it's been around a long time. It's not a new concept, but every concept gets contextualized, and this is the moment that I would like to contextualize it for what we are living through. The second thing that I'd like to bring to you is I don't know if you follow the World Economic Forum and its skills reports that come out from time to time, but there is a research that the WEF launched and in fact published called The Future of Jobs. And I would strongly recommend that you look at the Future of Jobs report from the WEF, because the studies are giving great insights into what even the university notices and is what our researchers are researching on, and what me as head of business development, as the industry liaison, is seeing in industry every day. And that is that there are new skills that are going to be important for economies going forward. There are evolved skill sets that are going to be important for economies going forward. Remember, we're leading in the fourth industrial revolution. Yeah, this is the fourth industrial revolution, where digitalization, automation, AI, and all of that is going to create a completely different paradigm for how jobs are viewed, how skill sets are viewed, and how trends are going to be seen. So it's very important that we put a finger on that pulse of the new skills that are evolving and Very interestingly, that report talks about fundamental skills. It talks about the importance of skills that you and I learnt at primary school. Yeah, surprising, isn't it? But at primary school, without realizing, and that's one of the biggest losses for students who've been out of school for so long, which they're losing out on those skills, and which is sharing and negotiating. And remember, as children, you're constantly sharing and negotiating. And as trivial as it seems when you're a child, those skills are coming right back to the table, which is how can you create a pool of skill sets which is able to share, collaborate, negotiate, and grow, because you cannot today grow alone. Collaboration is the key, partnerships are key, and how to create that partnership ecosystem becomes really, really key. However, in all of that, the analytical ability or the mathematical ability, as we can broadly put it, becomes very, very important as well. So one cannot coexist without the other. So that report calls out that a single skill set job, those days are gone. If you're only mathematical or only analytical, they are on the decline because there's automation catching up. If you're only on the social side of skills, for example, a childcare worker who's only on the social side of skills on the extreme other end of the spectrum, it's possibly a slightly poorly paid job. It's probably a very high supply demand equation. So too much supply, maybe too little demand. So the sweet spot of skills going forward becomes one that is a blend of both social skills and analytical skills. And that's what the report calls out. So analyze your own skill set. And, engineers, doctors, things that are very, very functionally oriented with the left brain, very good, very important. However, is that all that's needed? Possibly not. Leadership skills, the ability to empathize, the ability to collaborate becomes very important. And that's where the blend makes most sense. So the WEF report also called out, so what are those skills that are important? And it gives a beautiful list of things which, when I read, I was like, okay, that makes tremendous sense. And it also calls out the skills that were on the decline. So let's take a quick look at a few of those, which I'll come to. I won't take much time, but I'll tell you about those. Top of the pops on the skills that are going to be in demand in future are analytical thinking and innovation. How do you create an analytical ability to think through a problem which is complex and create an innovative solution? Now, this, as you can clearly tell, does not need a type of study or the other, but needs exposure in a well-rounded format. The ability to pull from various experiences, various learnings, and then create a solution which is a complex problem solved innovatively. And I think that's where it lies. The second one, then obviously on that list, is complex problem solving. Having the ability to look at various aspects and complex problem solve. Critical thinking comes up third. Active learning. And then as you go down the list, creativity, EQ, trustworthiness, leadership. So while all of these softer skills, so-called softer skills, are on the list, the change from 1995, when I compared the two lists, to now, which is the 2022-25 skills requirement, has inverted that list completely. Earlier, it was leadership, EQ, trustworthiness, people management at the top. For those of you who are from my era will probably recognize that. Today, it is inverted. It's complex solving, analytical thinking, which of course has the ingredients of leadership, of course has EQ in it. However, also calls for a mix and a real blend of skills. So what's declining then? It's quite obvious what's declining, which is manual dexterity skills, things which are replaceable, memory and special, abilities. And those are, again, skills that are on the decline or are easily replaceable. Management of financial resources. There is software to be able to do a lot of those things today. Management of personnel only or quality control only. So do take a look at that, because it will give you an idea of what kind of abilities we need to build within ourselves as we keep growing and evolving. And no one can ever say that I have all of it now and I've learned what I needed to. We're all always on a learning path, and I think that's the most important thing. So very interesting line I read saying, the world is facing a reskilling emergency. And that is the moment of today. We are in a reskilling emergency. And the more we realize it and what we can do about it as leaders and as learners, that's the most critical part. And I'm going to come to a few of those, contexts anyway. There's an interesting statistic that says in 7 billion jobs, about 1/3 of them are going to be transformed by technology just in the next decade. 30% and above of the jobs we currently have will no longer remain the way they are today. So it's an emergency for us to relook at our ecosystems, at our own skill set, and the influence that we have around. The next trend I want to talk to you about is the huge value on hot topics that we need to place as leaders in the ecosystem. Things like diversity and inclusion. How inclusive a leader am I, or how inclusive a person am I? It doesn't have to be who's a leader anyway, and that's a separate day for a separate debate. That what is a leader anyway? We all are leaders in ourselves. But what is that inclusion agenda that we are able to see without bias, without unconscious biases? How do we include conversations of people across age groups, across abilities, across gender? And if you're not an inclusive leader, you're not with a global mindset anyway, because that's the need of the hour, as we all know. But secondly, and very importantly, a great word I came across at the university here is permeability. How do you create a permeable ecosystem, which has not got its membrane very thick and strong around it, but is allowing thoughts, ideas, and action to flow between it? It's learning and it's giving out learning at all times. And I think that permeability becomes very important as we go forward. Lastly, on the hot topics area, there's a great United Nations principles. If you haven't come across it, do Google it again. It's called the Prime Principles, PRME. And all organizations worldwide are embedding prime principles into their strategy, which is essentially about responsible management and sustainability. How, as a business, are you running a responsible business which is sustainable? I heard the word sustainable on the previous panel just before I joined in as well. Very, very key. What is your role and how are you embedding UN's prime principles into your strategy? We do at the university and consciously do so. And I would recommend it's a great read. So the question after all those trends remains, how and so what? What do I do with it? How do I embrace this? And what is my role in it? So retraining, evaluating your training, reskilling, evaluating your skills with statistics on what skills are going to be important, with your own needs, of course. One brush stroke doesn't paint all. You need to be, true to your own business, and then resettling those who have been unsettled by this pandemic becomes very, very important. And a lot of people on this call I know are net job creators, and kudos to them for creating roles because they're entrepreneurs. I think you play a very important role in this whole ecosystem, which is very, very, very key. So a couple of things I'm going to share as quick points before I finish in terms of what I've learned over the many years that I worked in the industry. And this is not a finite set. It's only 5 odd things I've picked up. One, most important than ever, it is to not wait and watch, to get on and do something about it. And there's a lovely term I came across, and I speak quite extensively on it. In fact, I have a TEDx talk, which, if you want on YouTube, you can search me on the TEDx platform, which I speak about the sticky floor. Let's not wait for someone to say you can or can't do this. Let's get off our own sticky floor. Sometimes we find ourselves standing on one, not able to pull ourselves out and launch ourselves. But let's do that because the time is now to get off and take off. And I think that becomes very, very important. Second one is, time and again, we hear from every research that in this time of big change in history, the key things that employees want, that people want, that even family, friends want is communication, motivation, empathy, and words like that, things that keep them going. And whose responsibility is it to do that? All of ours together. So it's very, very key to keep communication clean, keep it clear. And in my learning, that becomes the most important, part of doing business. Also, I'll mention that, another key learning that I've had is now more than ever, the importance of repivoting your personal brand or getting in touch with your personal brand. Even if you're part of an organization, you are a brand within a brand if you're working for somebody. And you are, of course, intrinsically joined with the brand if you're an entrepreneur. In both cases, getting in touch with your personal brand. Who am I and what am I seeking? And how am I perceived when I'm seeking success becomes very important, because they say that you are the storyteller of your own life and you can create your own legend or not. It's in your hands. So stay authentic, stay true, because I think that's one of the features that works. You can never pretend to be somebody else for very long. So you are your true self, stay authentic, and discover yourself as you go along, and it becomes very, very important. And lastly, I think in the true spirit of what we are here today is get yourself a mentor. Very important to get yourself a mentor. I've had a mentor for over 20, 25 years now, and he's on one of these panels as well. And it is so important to get that guidance from someone who's been there, done that, or even discovering the journey along with you. But it's a great bouncing board to have a mentor in life and stay true to that, because it's someone you can trust and someone that you can work along with. So there was someone who said that on the previous panel that the time is now to do something for yourself. Get up and do it. And I just want to end this session. I know I've been rambling on for 15 minutes on my own, but I'd love to hear from you after this. But there's a Kabir Das doha that comes to mind to wrap up this session, and I'm such a fan of Kabir's dohas, short as they are, but so incisive. It says, "Jaise til mein tel hai, jo chamak mein aag, tera साईं तुझ में है, तू जाग सके तो जाग." For those of you who got it, it talks about your God is sitting within you, and the ability to do something is within you. If you can wake up and you can get that, go ahead and grab it, because the time is now. So with that, I'll end my monologue, and I'll open it up to any questions that might be coming or any comments that you might want to have. So thanks again for hearing me out.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I must say, the last doha that you said, I still have goosebumps, not only on the body, but also the mind for a minute got electrified, because it really makes so much sense. Rather than the real God we're trying to find outside is actually within us. And now I would request anybody in the audience, if you're having questions, because we're seeing a lot of people complimenting ma'am for the beautiful inputs she has given. But I think questions, if anybody has any question, we have Ruchi ma'am live here, and we can ask any question. I think no better opportunity than this we can ever have in life. If anybody is having a question, please ensure that you put your questions in the question box and not in the chats.
There was a question here that
So, ma'am, what I personally...
Sorry, I can see a question here that says, please share the same link. So I would just say that if you search for World Economic Forum Skills 2022, you'll be able to get that list off the web. But if you don't, please do contact Ashish or KPH, and I'll be very happy to share that link.
Then we have one more question, ma'am. He say, Mr. S.K. Mehar says, I want recommendation letter for search program. Is there anyone who can help me out? I don't know if there's a question. I thought it's an excitement one, but okay. All right, sir. This I think you should have a personal talk on. We would love to take a question that can help everyone together. So usually, ma'am, what I personally feel is,
take up question. We can continue to take up the questions in the next sessions.
Yes.
Ruchi, thank you very much for joining us. On my request, it was always a great pleasure to work with you in person when you were in Microsoft here, and we did so much together. That was really remembering, and we spoke, and then we take it forward. And as I remember, both of us have a common mentor also. So great. Great to take it up from here. KPH, I think so now you can take it up for the next session. Ruchi, thank you for coming over weekend. That's the biggest thing, right? I disturbed you there. Okay.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so KPH, you would like to say that, yeah, we will come back again in the next session. I'm closing this right now.
Okay.
Thank you.